Alright, this is going to be a short video on intersections for roads. Someone in the Discord asked about it. They're having a bit of trouble setting up their intersections and didn't like how they turned out. So I'm going to go through it. Okay, so I already have on this landscape a couple of different roads, but we're going to concentrate on this bitumen type road at the moment. Going to Modes, Landscape. In Manage, go to Splines, and you'll see that any splines you've got in the map will suddenly turn into splines. This road here has got a static mesh applied to it, which is the standard way of making a road for the squad maps. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make one from scratch and just an intersection from scratch. So I'm basically just going to draw a little road from here, and it's going to have like a T intersection. It's going to go around here and around there, and that'll do us. Alright, so first thing with splines. To create a spline is Control left click and it'll make a spline. The spline controls your width of your road, and it also controls how much fall off at the side for blending the landscape deformation into the original landscape, so that it blends between your original landscape and wherever you set your road. I like to put out two splines to start with so that I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to select both of these and I'm going to raise them. Be aware that every time you select a control point, if you've done something else, okay, it's making a liar of me. Generally it snaps to scale, so just you'll get used to it. The spline points, like I said, control the width of the road and the width of the fall off. The segment itself contains, all it contains is the mesh. So the splines here, I'm going to set up my splines. This road here is 5 meters wide, and it has a 5 meter fall off. You can see these faint green lines up here. That's my fall off between the terrain under the road and the terrain where it used to be. Okay, so I'm going to make this road, I'm going to make it the same. Let's say 5 meters, 500 units. And I'm going to make the fall off 5 meters, 500 units. And I'm going to then go into my section, and in here is where we put in our spline mesh. It's under landscape spline meshes on the segment, not the points. The points also have it. It's confusing. Go to segment. The confusing is the points have it, and it's down here. It's in your face, and you get go away. Spline meshes, you have to add, and then you can put in your spline mesh. This is my main road, asphalt road spline mesh. I'm going to drop in here, and then we have roads. Underneath that road, I have painted a rock texture, which is one of the painted layers on this map. The other one's grass, and the other one's sand, and the other one's like a foresting. I'm going to use rock again under this. It's a feasible base for the road. So going to paint, and this is my rock layer, and it's capital R-O-C-K. It's got to be the same, otherwise you'll confuse the program. Under landscape deformation, in the layer name of the segment, type in rock. Now every time I deform the landscape and basically apply these splines to the landscape, it will paint the rock layer underneath and should get rid of all of the grass elements. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is, it's not going to work properly for this first one because I've done them up in the air. Now that I've got that all set up and I'm happy with that, I'm happy with my road width and the fall off, and I'm happy with the mesh, now we've got to put it back on the ground because it's not on the ground. We could leave it up here, and you can build a road anywhere you want. You will deform the landscape to the road, don't worry about it. Play with it, it's a lot of fun. For the purposes of this though, to set points on the ground, use the end key, that'll put on the ground. Okay, now my segment is nearly hidden, but I can still select it. If you can't select it because it's under terrain, just get one of the segments, one of the control points, and then collect on your segments. And these buttons will select all your control points or all of your segments for that entire spline that you're working on. Not other ones, just that one. Okay, so now deformation time. Raise and lower terrain are on by default. That's what you want to use anyway, unless you've got some very special use case. I'm going to go only selected. Now, because I did it up in the air and then put them on the ground, this is not going to actually paint the layer very well underneath. So a way to fix this, and a way to fix not deforming to the landscape properly, is to basically spam the clicking. So, and then you can see how it's actually done a better job. From now on, however, any ones that I place, because they'll be placed automatically on the ground, and when I move them around, as long as I don't lift them up during time, they should paint off fine once I deform the landscape. Now I'm going to make an intersection. The easiest way to do intersections is to go into the top view or your plan view and then do it like this. It's a lot easier. You need to select the spline point that you want to go from. I want to continue on from this one, and then it's a simple matter of control left click. Okay, and then this one here is going to be the start of my intersection area. My intersection is going to go in here. Okay, you want to keep these relatively short. So control click, and then I'm going to go around this way first. So I'm going to click over here, and then here, and then here, and then here. It's pretty ugly. I'm going to go back to where my intersection starts at this one, and I'm going to go in the other direction. Now we've got a basic Y intersection, which, you know, it doesn't look great, really, to be honest, but it'll work. I'm going to move these around just a little bit, just to get them a bit more even. You want your curves and stuff to be even to start with, otherwise you can be chasing your tail a bit. Now, to turn this into a T intersection, you can't do it like this. You have to join these two together. So select this one, and then control click on this unselected one here, and it'll create the new section segment in between. So now we've got a basic T intersection, which looks okay. It's not terrible. However, I'm going to now rotate these a little bit, each one, until my intersection looks a little bit more like a T intersection, or at least a T intersection on a curve, because there is a bit of a curve to the road. That's looking fairly even, like our curve. That curve's a bit tight, so I might actually move this one out just a little bit like that. We want to keep these, we don't want hard curves in here too much. Okay, now we'll go down into perspective mode, and you can see that it's all covered in grass still because I haven't applied any of it. So again, I'm going to grab this segment, and then I'm going to go across to collect all segments of that spline, and then I'm going to deform to landscape. As you can see, it paints the rock underneath and we lose all our grass, which is exactly what we want. Just for shits and giggles, I'm going to raise this one up a bit, and then raise that one up a bit, and then I'm going to select these ones, and I'm going to only selected. And you can see how if you keep clicking, I'm clicking a lot here, you can incrementally, gradually build up that and basically made a ramp. So you can cut through terrain, you can raise terrain, lower terrain. It works really well to the most degree, like to the most point. It doesn't always work perfectly, but mostly it works. In here we've got a little bit of this crossover here, which is a bit of the mesh. This mesh here is bleeding through the other meshes. So the way to fix that is you can play with the heights of these. See how that's, okay, so if I raise it right up, you can see how they're all crossed over and it gets messy, right? Just take it down gradually until you can hide it, or mostly hide it. Like, that's pretty good. Yeah, in fact, I'd stay there. Another way to fix that is to actually bring this forward. See how we can hide that white line at the edge of the road by just shifting that forward a little bit. Now, you can see here that the terrain is not deformed properly around this anymore because we've moved it. So what I'm going to do is, again, grab all of my segments and deform only selected, and we've now got a nice flat tight intersection that's nice and happy. The spline meshes will, if I go into select mode and get rid of that, the spline meshes will sit up sometimes. This is on flat ground, so it's pretty good, but you will get areas where the spline meshes will sit up off the landscape, and sometimes they'll sit under the landscape slightly at the edges. This one, because it's on flat land, it's pretty good. However, I'm going to grab all of the control points. Which one did, oh, it's grabbed, hang on, all the control points, and then turn on that. And basically I'm just going to lower it all so that I can get rid of this dark edge. This dark edge is for landscape blending if you're using that. I'm not using it on this, so another way to do it is hide that, is to just drop your road down just a fraction like that. You can drop it down as much or as least as you want, and you'll still have the camber on the road. You'll still have an actual mesh there. It's just mostly buried at the edges. That's all we're doing, and that's pretty much it. The only other thing you can do to clean it up is to go into your rock layer, or whatever layer you put underneath, and set up a tool like I've set up here that's about the width of the road, but it's got to fall off, so it's going to be a bit bigger than this, about 600, and you can use that to paint underneath there, so you get 100% paint, and it'll remove any grass that happens to be, like on this corner here, there's some grass that's, well, it's on the rock, but it's a bit close to the road. We don't want it close to the road, so we'll get rid of it, and that should, yeah, it should despawn the grass. And at the ends as well. And then the last thing you want to do is you want to go back into your spline tool, and the ends of your roads, where they end, you want to drop the end control point down to hide it, or at least get it so that it's not obvious, and it'll blend that last bit of road in. But generally make, like, I'll do it again, hang on, press end to sit it on there. I'm going to create another segment here, and I'm going to drop this one down instead. It's going to be a bit harsher, but you know, and I'm going to then deform that landscape again, so that you've got basically, I'll get out of that, you can blend off the end of your road. Okay, and you see this bit of the road here is still sitting up a bit high. That's unfortunately as good as it gets, unless you go into the blending mode, or you go and do some sort of RVT shenanigans. But other than that, that's how you do an intersection.